Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave. It is time for the Premier League review, which will be live every Monday at 12 noon. But we've also got the preview going live every Friday at 3 o'clock. On today's show, we're going to look at Manchester United's 1-0 win over West Ham. We're going to dive into Leeds' surprise 2-1 win at Anfield. And of course, a little bit of Arsenal talking about structure and how they're going to be fine, even if Saka or Martinelli or Odegaard or any of their key players get injured. Of course, if you're new around here, smash that like button. Of course, get into the comments below your thoughts on the weekend's action. Anyway, it's time to dive in. First up, we're going to be taking a look at Manchester United's 1-0 win over West Ham United. A tough game where United had to lean on David De Gea's brilliance in goal and some good defensive clearances from Diogo Dalot, Harry Maguire and Lisandro Martinez, but United got the job done. Marcus Rashford scoring his 100th goal for Manchester United. 64 coming with his right foot, 8 with his left foot, 7 headers, 13 set pieces, and 8 other goals. Marcus Rashford joins a list of academy graduates that have reached that milestone, such as Paul Scholes and, of course, Ryan Giggs. It was a big performance from Rashford, I think by far Manchester United's best player, man of the match, starting from the left-hand side. And I do think as the season goes on, of course, if United do start rotating Anthony Martial into the side when he gets his fitness, or in January when they sign a new number 9, Rashford is going to be the best on the left wing. I think the big thing with Rashford is confidence is starting to come back. One of the stats that we had from the midweek game in the Europa League is Rashford now is directly involved in more goals than last season. He's scored more and assisted more than he has in the entirety of the last campaign. So he's a player that is in good form. And I think the big thing that it allows United to do, it gives them an outlet, not only on the back post as we saw for the goal, but in possession. We can see how high he is on the heat map, the highest Manchester United player in the game against West Ham United. I think we're starting to see that left-hand side becoming really dangerous in build-up, but also dangerous in chance creation. We saw Luke Shaw in the assists last week, but also goal scoring with Marcus Rashford. From a tactical perspective, it was a pretty tough game for Manchester United. West Ham are a tough nut to crack under David Moyes. In terms of the setup in the game, Manchester United went 4-2-3-1. The surprises in the selection, we saw Anthony Elanga start from the right-hand side, and we saw Cristiano Ronaldo through the middle. Manchester United played well through the lines in the first half. I liked how they utilised not only the midfield, duo in Eriksen and Casemiro to sort of progress the play, because the West Ham were kind of, blocking the space out centrally. I quite liked the movement of Casemiro. Casemiro has massively shone for me on and off the ball in recent weeks. He's been fantastic. Has adapted to the Premier League really well. It allows Shaw and Dalot to move into either wide or inside positions, and Casemiro dropping in between the centre-backs and getting on the ball in those deep areas and then dictating. There was a really good ball in the first half. I think he switched the play out to Elanga. I think he had some balls out to Marcus Rashford in those situations. But again, the goal came from a set piece in a sense. Christian Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes combining on the edge of the box to cross for Rashford to the back stick. One of the big things that we spoke about in the preview was how United had to get away from Kurt Zouma. Kurt Zouma, in fact, in this game, we thought he was going to start at right centre-back, but he actually started at left centre-back, and Dawson made a surprise entry into the lineup. He's been injured for a little bit of time. So United, I think, did well in the sense of now, because of the two aerial defenders in Zouma and in Dawson, the only place that you're going to be able to cross the ball and get any joy is dropping it to Timo Kehrer on that back stick, and that's exactly what United did for the goal. Casemiro was backing up the play, asking for that quick option, but Dalot, who had a brilliant game, waited for the right moment, dropped it to Eriksen. There was a combination play with Bruno Fernandes, and then Christian Eriksen, of course, crossed that back stick. Kehrer is a decent defender, but I think aerially is one of his weaknesses, and Rashford completely bullied him off the ball, giving United the opening goal of the game with a fantastic cross to the back post and finished off, of course, past Fabianski. Marcus Rashford has massively improved in the air. He's already scored twice with headers this season. That's more than he's managed in his previous 4 campaigns combined. You can really see the aggression to attack the ball, get the first contact, and of course the direction has got a lot better for Rashford as well. So big congratulations to him. Of course, Christian Eriksen has now got 3 assists in the Premier League, which is more than Trent Alexander-Arnold, Harry Kane and João Cancelo combined. Considering how creative those guys were last season, Eriksen is making a great impact already for Manchester United. But I think we've got to look at David De Gea. We've got to look at the defenders to round off this part of the show. Of course, Manchester United, as they have done In the latter stages of games, Ten Hag has gone to the bench. He's brought on the energy of Fred and Scott McTominay. Of course, Fred missed another pretty big chance. I think in a parallel universe, Fred is Premier League top scorer, but not in this universe. He hit the post with his header. It was a good header, but slightly misdirection. And Scott McTominay came on to provide some extra sort of defensive coverage. But I think the big thing we've got to look at for Manchester United, Diogo Dalot was so good defensively. Gary Neville gave him heaps of praise on Sky Sports, and he absolutely deserved it. There were 3 big headers that he won in the penalty area against Scamacca, against Benrahma, and of course against Mikel Antonio. Diogo Dalot has massively improved for Manchester United. I always knew he had the talent. I always knew he had the potential, but now we're all seeing it, which is beautiful. Against West Ham United, 5 clearances, 3 interceptions, won 4 out of his 4 tackles. 4 chances created, 4 crosses, 4 out of 4 accurate long balls, 1 shot blocked, and of course 100% of his dribbles completed. A brilliant game from Diogo Dalot. But also Lisandro Martinez, I don't need to keep talking about him. I talk about him every single time we do these. We have these conversations. He's been superb for Manchester United this season. Another brilliant performance against West Ham United. 3 clearances, 4 blocks, an interception, 2 out of his 2 tackles, 1. So good on the ball, so good off the ball. But a big shout out to David De Gea. The save at the end against Declan Rice, the save against Kurt Zouma, basically won United the game. Of course, he didn't make the 55-man Spain World Cup squad, and I think they'll be ruined. That De Gea has improved off his line, as he showed again against West Ham, beating Benrahma to a loose ball. He looks better in possession of the football, and he just looks all round that he's still got the goalkeeping that we all know that he's got. So David De Gea, massively on the up, Diogo Dalot on the up, and Manchester United sitting in 5th in the Premier League. A game in hand on Newcastle, a game in hand on Spurs. They could get themselves up to 3rd if they win the next game. Or their game in hand 9-0, but hey, let's move on. Right, it's time to move on to the second game of the Premier League review. We are now going to take a little bit of a dive to Anfield and talk about Liverpool versus Leeds United. Quite frankly, a chaotic game. When I was thinking about this game going into it, I thought Liverpool would have enough in the diamond. The 4-4-2 diamond is a natural overload to a 4-4-2 that Leeds play. But the thing that maybe I didn't consider enough was how chaotic Leeds can make games of football. Their direct gegenpressing style means that they have times where they have their front 4 breaking on the back 4, and for Liverpool, that was far too much. I think the start of the first 5 minutes really set a tempo for the game. The first sort of big moment of the match saw the ball get past Meslier, Mohamed Salah in behind, and Robin Koch having to clear the ball off the line. And then, of course, the Leeds United goal, the mistake from Joe Gomez. But again, it was good play from Leeds United. They squeezed really well and then forced the ball back. Of course, there was a massive mix-up between Alisson and Joe Gomez, but the intensity that Leeds started the game with was absolutely fantastic. And that's something that Liverpool just this season seemed to struggle with, the intensity of the opposition. There was a moment in the first sort of 5-10 minutes of the game where the ball again went back to Alisson, and Leeds pressed with both Rodrigo and Aronson, forcing Alisson to just boot the ball out of play. And this is something that Liverpool need to kind of get a grasp on. I think the one thing that I'd say about them right now is they really lack control. They lack control in central areas. They lack control defensively, offensively. There's a lot of issues. I think in the first half, especially for Leeds United, there are a few breaks down the left-hand side. And I feel tactically with this kind of 4-4-2 diamond against this Leeds team, it didn't work due to the just natural width that Leeds were playing with. They were playing with Harrison on the right-hand side and Somerville on the left-hand side, and they were causing all types of problems. They were pulling the midfield over, opening up space in between the lines and on the far side of the pitch, and there wasn't enough legs in that midfield for Liverpool, and that is the big thing. I think the big concern for me right now for Liverpool is they just don't look mobile. Too many times we see the fullbacks high and teams basically breaking on their 2 centre-backs. We had moments in this game where Leeds basically broke with their front 5 players. We saw Tyler Adams getting involved in one counter-attack, basically having a 5-on-2 in the transition. And Liverpool just don't look like they've got everything together. It just looks like the legs in this midfield at the moment isn't quite good enough. Of course, Harvey Elliott started for Liverpool, and then we saw Curtis Jones come on. I thought Curtis Jones played quite well, especially on the carry, on dribbling. But defensively, Liverpool looked absolutely all over the place. Offensively, and I can't really argue with what they did. I thought there was some good combination play between Salah, between Núñez, between Firmino. I thought the fullbacks got up pretty well up the pitch and provided the width. Of course, Robertson providing the assist for Mohamed Salah for his goal in the game. And I feel there's a real sort of difference with the offense and their defense. Darwin Núñez is getting chances but simply not taking them. The 1v1 he had with Meslier, superb save from the young goalkeeper, and then you think the long range curler from that left hand side, bending it into the far corner again, Meslier dealing with that problem. When you look at Liverpool, that's one of the concerns right now. They're not taking these opportunities. Darwin Núñez is so raw. We've said this over and over again. But it was an interesting signing. You think the number 9, Liverpool haven't played with a number 9 really under Jürgen Klopp. All the best sort of moments have come with a false 9, with wide forwards that score the goals. And Núñez is going away from that. And at the moment, it feels like a massive gamble spending 85 million quid on a player that isn't ready to take the mantle. Let's be honest. These chances he's getting, the expected goals that he's totting up is, there will be a moment where it clicks for him. But Liverpool need him right now. Liverpool let Sadio Mane go in arguably still in his peak of his career, and have signed him with a younger player that isn't ready yet for this, the competitive nature of the Premier League in terms of chance creation. And I think one of the interesting sides of the Liverpool heat map against Leeds United looks pretty decent. But one thing's missing for me, and that's that high and wide player. And if we take a look at Bayern Munich from the weekend, they absolutely destroyed Augsburg at the weekend. Mainz at the weekend, not Augsburg. I'm getting any Bundesliga fans in the chat, I'm sorry. Do let yourself know, and I will apologise to you in the chat down below. But the game against Mainz, Bayern absolutely blew them up. They destroyed them. But one of the really interesting parts of their average positions, the high, wide position of Sadio Mane. This is something that Liverpool need to get back to. Their forwards getting into these areas. Mane is number 17, super high on the left-hand side. It stretches the opposition. It's pressing high. It's engagement. These are events on the football pitch. And at the moment for Liverpool, feels like we haven't got that. One of their biggest strengths in recent years, we just don't have. And of course, Sadio Mane is going to be a miss to any team. But it seems like he is someone that arguably had a bigger impact than maybe we thought. The pressing, the intensity, the runs in behind, the stretching of the play, big. But let's get back to the game. Again, Liverpool don't have Sadio Mane, and they probably need someone like that, but it was sloppy. I think that's the biggest side for it. The winner for Leeds United, how sloppy Virgil van Dijk and Thiago were on the ball in that moment it's just not good enough. And again, Leeds, the big thing that I loved about Leeds in that goal was how they won that second ball. It was a mistake that they forced with their pressure, but the way that Tyler Adams recovered the play and then straight out to the young lad that came off the bench for Leeds, Nonto, it's one of these things where you expect Liverpool to win that second ball, or that's the Klopp team is, they win second balls. And it was just too easy. I do think you've got to give credit to Jesse Marsch. You've got to give credit to Leeds. One of the things that I said on the radio this weekend was Leeds United's expected goals are absolutely fantastic. Like their expected points, their expected goals against. They should be a mid-table team. They've underperformed their expected goals massively this season. But Meslier was a massive part about stopping Liverpool. 9 saves in a single game in the Premier League this season, which is the most, joint with Nick Pope. Nick Pope made 9 against Crystal Palace. Meslier made 9 against Liverpool. Absolutely fantastic. And one thing that's been ruined now, Virgil van Dijk's record at Anfield has now been put in the bin. The 71st appearance at Anfield. He hadn't lost. He's picking up his first defeat in 71 matches. Pretty impressive. But you got to look at Liverpool. They are still, there is still problems. I want to see Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield. I don't know if that's going to solve all the problems, but that might solve some of them. I think they've got to play some sort of back three, whether it's Gomez at right centre-back and Matip at centre-back with Van Dijk, or it is a back three. There is serious problems at the moment for Liverpool Football Club, and they need to work it out. They really do, because they are in a bit of a weird spot. 9th in the Premier League. They've dropped, I think, how many points have they dropped? They dropped 20 points this season. They only dropped 22 last season. Klopp's got a lot of work to do, so it's going to be interesting to see how he finds the solution. Right, let's finish things off today talking Arsenal and why they may have built a system and formation It means if they get injuries, they'll be absolutely fine in the Premier League. Arsenal, after this weekend's games, sit top of the Premier League on 31 points. And for me, going into the World Cup, I think they will be top of the Premier League. Arsenal, of course, have beaten a number of teams this season. You think of the good performances in recent weeks against the likes of Liverpool, against Tottenham Hotspur. But this was a game where they had to win. This could have been a tricky fixture, of course. Forest beat Liverpool last weekend with a very compact performance. The lineup pretty much stayed the same. You know, the narrow kind of 4-5-1 shape with Lingard and Morgan Gibbs-White dropping back into midfield and covering that space. It could have been a difficult afternoon for Arsenal. But the big thing that I said on the Premier League preview on Friday was I feel that Arsenal very much like Pep Guardiola's Man City, and City found a way to positionally open up Forest and work the balls into those half spaces, movement from those half space positions and not tracking runners. And we saw that again for Forest. They had a real poor ability to track that midfield movement, and in a number of different ways we're going to go through, tactically look at that, and of course have a little bit of a look at what the impact of losing Saka is and will there be any impact. So let's dive into the tactics. I think the really interesting side with this game, of course, Forest, as we mentioned, sitting in pretty much a compact 4-5-1, looking to soak up pressure and then break in behind the fullbacks. I think this is something that works in, against teams like Liverpool, who throw their fullbacks forward and look to use them in an attack, whereas Arsenal have a very, very good base. Mikel Arteta, of course, went Tomiyasu at left back and Ben White at right back for this match. The classic front five: Martinelli, Jesus, Odegaard, Saka, Xhaka moving from deeper midfield to higher midfield, and of course Partey, that kind of base in midfield. What I liked about the way that Arsenal opened up Forest is they created a 5-on-4 multiple times, and the progression to the wide areas was very, very simple. When I'm talking about the progression, because of the narrow shape of Forest, what Arsenal were kind of doing with their fullbacks, they were kind of drawing the shape even more narrow and then simply progressing really, really quickly to Saka and to Martinelli. And that's something that caused Forest a lot of problems in the opening 30 minutes of the game, especially balls out to the right-hand side. Saka was absolutely massively important in terms of the first 30 minutes of the game, in terms of facing up Reiss Lodi, beating him with a dribble and then either crossing or shooting or getting the ball into the box. And I do think that's something that Forest need to kind of work on how they're going to deal with that, because teams will attack with a front five against them. They will play, the kind of the width, the pitch, the inside channels. You're thinking Arsenal will do this, City will do this, Manchester United will try and utilise a 5-on-4 on the back line for Nottingham Forest, and that's something that they can they'll have to work on to deal with. But in terms of the threat that I said, the movement from midfield, that was a real problem that Forest didn't deal with. So let's take a look at that first goal and the impact of Gabriel Martinelli starting the move, driving on that inside line and then making a move into the box as Saka cut inside and then cross to the back stick. Watch the movement of Ben White as well. I think it's pretty underrated in the move. He took the attention of Lodi away for that split second, which allowed Saka to come inside and cross. So let's take a look at the action, the match. Of course, we've got Forest in their kind of defensive shape. We've got Martinelli has just cut inside, and what we'll see in a minute is the ball will go out to Saka, but his movement off the ball just doesn't get picked up. And this has been a bit of a concern for me for Forest, is picking up midfield runners from these kind of either these central areas or the inside channels. So as Martinelli plays the ball out wide, we see Saka receive it. He drives and carries in. Ben White, as mentioned, makes a great overlapping run, which you can see Reiss Lodi has to change his body orientation, thinking that the ball could be slipped down. We've seen Ben White grab assists recently in the Premier League where he's hit the byline and cut the ball back. But of course, Saka's using that as a decoy. If you look at Gabriel Martinelli, I think Gabriel Martinelli is the most improved Premier League player in the last 12 months. His ability to create chances is insanely improved, but also his movement and his finishing just looks so much better. But the way that he runs on the blind side of the midfield, but also ahead of the defender, opening himself into a really good little bit of space. And of course, Saka inverted crossing. One of the concerns I had when I was watching the game as Saka went off on 30 minutes is, do Arsenal have a direct like-for-like replacement that's left-footed that can come on and cross to the back stick, or the near post, put those in-swinging balls in that are so dangerous in football. Of course, this goal Martinelli got on the end of Saka's header. Arsenal 1-0 up. The concern then came with the injury. What I mentioned there with Saka and him cutting in and the inverted cross is so dangerous. There isn't a like-for-like real replacement yet in the Arsenal squad. You'd say Marquinhos potentially will be that guy in the long term. But Arteta went to the bench. He didn't bring on Eddie Nketiah and move Martinelli to the right. He kept Martinelli on the left and brought on Reiss Nelson, who's obviously had a bit of a loan spell in the Eredivisie last season and looks a bit more of a mature player, which I kind of like to see. And I think he's someone that was really important as the game moved forward. We'll take a look at one of his goals in a sec. But back to the midfield movement. Let's get back onto the midfield movement. A key reason why Arsenal won this game for me was that movement. So we've seen Martinelli make a move from kind of that central area after cutting in from the left wing and running in behind the defence. Now I think one of the big concerns at Forest really didn't deal with the movement of Granit Xhaka, and they had a bit of a warning sign within the first half. Let's take a look at one of those moments. So here we've got Arsenal 1-0 up. Thomas Partey in possession in defensive midfield. We can clearly see Arsenal's definition of their front five, which I think is absolutely fantastic. We've got Xhaka, we've got Jesus, Martinelli's in a central position. I just love the rotation that Arteta's side have at the moment. Odegaard's inside right, and of course Saka providing the width. So Saka's not been subbed off yet in this example. And the big thing that isn't being picked up again is the movement of Granit Xhaka. He runs off the blind side of Serge Aurier, not picked up at all. Leads to a very dangerous situation. It was a warning side that Forest need to pick up these runners from midfield. And that's something that kind of exposed them. This was a moment where Arsenal didn't get it quite right, but you can see how they're loading the penalty area with basically 5 players. Xhaka's movement to the left wing from left central midfield. We've got Jesus inside. We've got Odegaard and Martinelli basically attacking the box with 4 players plus the crosser, which is just exactly what you want in modern football. This didn't lead to a goal, but the warning signs for Granit Xhaka's forward movement were there. Let's move on to the first Reiss Nelson goal. Again, movement from midfield, from deep. Granit Xhaka in this basically the same position. Serge Aurier again is switched off a little bit. He's been run off from that central area. Again, the good thing of Arsenal's kind of attack thing we mentioned before, the 5-on-4 that they're creating every single time when they're attacking. The issue you got with Serge Aurier, he's going to be concerned a little bit with kind of Martinelli's movement. That's kind of his man. So he's obviously going to be looking at Martinelli, seeing where he is. But Xhaka just kind of exploited it over and over again for Arsenal, and this is the moment that he exploited it. Again, we can see the forward motion of Jesus. We've got Odegaard, and again Reiss Nelson at the top of the screen. This, of course, results in the goal with Arsenal committing bodies into the box. I love how the attack came down the left-hand side and was finished off on the right-hand side. This is positional play. This is the Pep Guardiola football that, we've kind of seen over and over again. Xhaka making that move into the penalty area, the forward motion. Jesus being super unselfish. Many strikers would just take the ball in the box, turn and get a shot away. But Jesus has got that awareness that his teammate may be in a better position. And the check inside from Reiss Nelson and then the finish on the second attempt was basically a perfect positional play goal. Draw an opposition down one wing, finish it off on the other. Absolutely superb from Arsenal. What I liked about Reiss Nelson and his finish, again, if Saka's in this position, he's going to be checking inside onto the stronger left foot. And I think you've got to give Nelson real credit for his duality with his feet. He's very, very two-footed. He cut in on that right foot onto his left. His shot was saved and he fired in the rebound. I think it'd be a good sort of replacement for Saka when Saka either is injured or needs a bit of a rest. 'Cause I think that was a great moment in the game. Scored his first goal, but the whole play, the movement from midfield, Forest not tracking those runners from those midfield zones, creating the 5-on-4, which was a common theme in the game. And finally, I want to talk about one last thing with it. When Forest kind of got back into a good defensive shape and kind of blocked it off a little bit more. One of the interesting things that we've seen recently is Thomas Partey arriving late into goal scoring positions. We saw it against Tottenham where he received Ben White's cutback, I think it was, and then bent the ball in from range. And we saw it again against Forest, this time with Reiss Nelson providing that kind of cutback. And it's something that gives Arsenal another element to their attack. We've seen how many bodies they load the box with. The 5 kind of forwards, in a sense, loaded with the crosser +4. But also Partey is another element. This Arsenal team has so many different ways that it can score goals. And I think you've got to give big credit to Mikel Arteta. This was for the Partey goal. Very similar moment to the Tottenham goal. Reiss Nelson cutting the ball back. Again, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Arsenal players in the penalty area. Again, the interchange. We have central midfielder, winger, striker, central mid or attacking midfielder, and then right winger. But the way that Partey has attacked the ball from this area and his ability to finish from these places is absolutely spot on. It gives Arsenal another element to their offensive game. And I think you've got to look at what they're going to do. They will be competing with City for the title this season. They are the closest team to Manchester City. You look at this, this is the 5th time since the start of the 1920 season that Arsenal have scored 5 goals in a game. The first of those 5 was against Nottingham Forest at the Emirates. How football kind of loops around is pretty interesting. And I think that level of, the depth in the squad, even if Saka's going to be injured for a few games, you've got to give a big shout out to Reiss Nelson. 2 goals and an assist. He came on the 27th minute. In 30 minutes, he'd scored twice and got an assist. Big impact in this game. Thomas Partey as well, controlled from the base, completed 103 passes, the most accurate passes in one match by an Arsenal player in over 2 years. Again, adds that goal-scoring element from edge of the box, as we mentioned. But tactically, Arsenal absolutely spot on, and that they could deal with a whole plethora of injuries. We spoke recently on the channel about how they might need to get another midfielder to cover Granit Xhaka and also a target man in there. I think I've got to stick with that. I don't think they need another winger. I think Reiss Nelson has shown that he has got the ability to do that. But guys, get into the comments below. Can Arsenal go the full way? Arsenal fans, can you win the league? We don't want City to win it every year. It's boring. So look, hopefully you guys are the guys. United are slowly sneaking up on the undercover. Some good performances in recent weeks. Liverpool very much need to fix up, look sharp, or it's going to be game over for them. But if you are new around here, smash that subscribe. Premier League preview Friday, 3 o'clock. Premier League review, 12 o'clock on a Monday. Hope you've enjoyed the content. Hope you've enjoyed the vibes. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.